Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville and the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so happy that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Hey, if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out our blog. Every time we post an episode, we post a blog written by my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. We have a wonderful show for you today. Our guest is the author of Be Bold, Be Brave, 11 Latinas Who Made U.S. History. Her name is Naibe Reynoso. Before Naibe joins us, I want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is sponsored by the Nature Club, a series of nature-based books for middle grade readers by author and wildlife biologist Rachel Mazer. The Nature Club is made up of a diverse group of 5 friends. Now, each book in the series tells the story of one of the kids and how they approach a challenge of growing up, including moving, parents divorcing, and health issues. Their stories each run in parallel with stories about wildlife and the challenges they face, including migration, metamorphosis, and foraging for seasonal foods. Each book ends with the kids finding ways to take simple actions to help themselves and the wildlife they love. Readers learn all about the natural history of birds, monarch butterflies, bears, raccoons, frogs, and bobcats. Now, at the end of each book, there are discussion questions and a section on additional information about the featured animal. For more information, you can find the Nature Club on Facebook or Instagram at the Nature Club Books or on the internet at natureclubbooks.com. That's the Nature Club, a fantastic middle grade series by our friend and wildlife biologist, Rachel Mazer. Joining us on the line right now from Los Angeles in Southern California. I keep meaning to go out there and open up a home office out there because we have so many authors from the Los Angeles area. Today, our guest is the author of Be Bold, Be Brave, 11 Latinas Who Made U.S. History. Please welcome to the show, Naibe Reynoso. Naibe, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
The title of your book, Be Bold, Be Brave, is really challenging for my speech impediment. It's tough getting all those B sounds
be
together.
Bold and you got to just be bold and be brave, and it'll come out.
And just go for it. That's right. Well, the subject of this wonderful bilingual book is near and dear to my heart because I have so many bold, brave Latinas in my wife. My daughter, my friends, many of my friends, my amazing niece. So I'm really excited to find out some of these Latinas that you are highlighting in your book.
So it's 11 Latinas, and I wanted to make sure that every field was represented. So I chose people like Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Oscar winner Rita Moreno, astronaut Ellen Ochoa, Surgeon General of the United States in the 90s, Antonia Novello. I interview a muralist, Judy Baca, an activist, Dolores Huerta. I interview Selena, who's a Latina icon, Pura Belpre, who was a librarian, the first Puerto Rican librarian in the New York City library system, who really emphasized the importance of bilingual literacy to cater to the community that went to some of the libraries there. So I really wanted to make sure that, like I said, every aspect of careers and career choices was well represented in this book.
Wow, what I love the many of the names I'm very familiar with. Selena, I loved Selena. What a treat! And what a tragic end to her amazing career. But there are a number of names that I wasn't aware of. Tell us a little bit more about that librarian in New York.
So Pura Belpre, she was, as I mentioned, the first Puerto Rican librarian in the New York public library system. And the reason I chose her was because she was bold and brave because she really used her voice and used her platform as a librarian to kind of change the library system in the sense of incorporating more bilingual books and actually writing Spanish books. Because at the time, this was, many years ago. She's no longer here with us. But at the time, she noticed that a lot of Latino children that were barely learning English would go to the libraries, but there were no books for them, and they didn't see themselves represented in books. So she was a trailblazer in literacy and bilingual literacy, and in really being a voice and an advocate for her community. So I thought it was really important to reflect that. And as a matter of fact, there is to this day a Pura del Pre book award given to authors and to illustrators that are Latino that are also to this day creating new books in her honor, because there is a need for books to reflect the community that it actually exists in this country. 30%, for example, in LA County are Latinos, and about 18% of the population of the United States as a whole are Latino. So, and only 2% of authors are Latino. So Pura del Pre, as I mentioned, she really made sure that our community was well represented in the libraries.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how important it is for kids to see themselves in the pages of books? I'll be honest. I mean, intellectually, I understand it and I believe in it. But one of the things that's interesting, just yesterday, we receive all sorts of books unsolicited here at the show. And this one book came, and I kind of went through it, and I'm like, oh, the pictures are beautiful. They're, just really vibrant illustrations and everything. And a little bit later, my wife came home, and she picked up the book, and she said, oh, it's nothing but Barbies in here. Everybody looks like Barbie. And it's very white. And I'm like, and it's like, that is something that she just bang. It, never occurred to me. But it's something that was very, very prominent to her. And so talk just a little bit about how important it is for kids to see themselves in the pages of books.
It's so important. I think books are the first pieces of media that children are exposed to, right? Before television, before iPads. Book, think about it. When you even have a newborn, what is the first thing that parents do with newborns? They read to them, right? It's board books or children's books. So that's human beings' first introduction to this world and our earth and our planet and our society. So when they don't see themselves in these pieces of media, as these kids, I think it sends a subconscious message to them of like, if you're not represented in media, you're invisible, or maybe your community doesn't really matter, or your community isn't important. And, these other communities that are more represented have priority, are more, or are possibly more important. Of course, these are messages that aren't directly said to children, but subconsciously, that's what they're hearing. I'm telling you from personal experience, because I remember when I was little, there was a coloring book, and I'm Latina, so I have brown hair and brown eyes. And I remember I was coloring this coloring book, and I was coloring her blonde and blue-eyed. And my aunt was like, "Why are you coloring her hair blonde and blue-eyed? You have, we have brown hair and brown eyes." And that's because I didn't really see that outside of myself. So to me, it's crucial. It's important. As I mentioned, I think we should give children's books a lot more credit than what they're given, because I think they do impact us as adults, in the long term. Because like I said, it's the first piece of media that we're exposed to as human beings.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, something occurred to me too, that it is the first media that we experience. It's also really, in most cases, it's the only media that we have a special place for in our home. TV shows, right. they just come in and they're gone. And music, it's played, but and even now most people don't have physical music, but books have that special place in our homes. And it's there.
Exactly.
You can see it. So, and I think that is also kind of elevates the book to that special place of honor in a family.
Definitely. I mean, when you walk in to a house, what's the first thing you see? You see picture frames of the family that lives in the home, right? And why do we see picture frames of our family with our dog, with our parents, with our grandparents, because it makes us feel good. It makes us feel good because we're reliving memories, etc. So you're exactly right. When we have these books in our bookshelves and just around us, if we see images that make us feel good because it's a reflection of who we are, and you can relate to that image of a Latina winning an Oscar, or, it's something that, as I mentioned, is going to have a subconscious value. I think an immeasurable value that we can't really tell how much of an impact it will have, but I think it has a huge impact.
Yeah. One of our first guests, and she's here a lot, Jennifer Swanson, who is our dean of all things STEM and STEAM. She was very generous and she sent a number of copies of her book, Astronaut, Aquanaut, How Sea Science and Space Science, and I reversed that and I got it wrong again. But Astronaut, Aquanaut, and she sent me some copies of that from my wife's school, and also the school that my wife's best friend is principal of, and that school is 85% of the kids are from Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. And they got so excited, and my wife's best friend came home, and she was so happy. She said, this is the first science book the kids just were fighting over. And it's because there were pictures in the book that showed astronauts and aquanauts who were Latino and Latina. And and the kids like, oh, whoa, we've never seen this before, and this is really great, and we want to know more about these people.
Exactly, and that's one of the astronauts, or one of the Latinas in my book is an astronaut, Ellen Ochoa. She's the first Latina to go into space, and she's not only an astronaut, she's an inventor. She's a classical flutist or flautist, however you pronounce it. She studied engineering, and my goal is for Latino kids here in the United States to feel like these roles, to normalize these positions, these career positions, to normalize the fact that, yes, you can be an inventor, you can be an astronaut, you can go to space. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, what your parents' educational level was. You can aspire and you can achieve, whatever it is that you want. Because a lot of the women that I feature in this book actually were the first people to graduate. Some of them were the first people to graduate, or from college in their families, were the first people to, go to a Ivy League school, were the first people to get higher education. And, that is the case for a lot of Latinos in this country.
What story of all the people that you featured in the book was most surprising to you?
Well, they're all so special and for different reasons. A lot of these names that I picked in my book are people that I had heard about, that I had heard whispers of as I was growing up as a proud American Latina in this country. But I didn't really know much about their story. I didn't really delve into I just kind of heard whispers. Oh, there's a Latina that went to space, or there was a Latina Surgeon General, but that's about all I knew. So each of them have a special story. Each of them because I did a lot of research before I wrote the book with each woman, and my book is meant for a younger audience. It's meant for 5 years old to 11 years old. So I didn't want to overwhelm that age group with a lot of information. So it's basically 3 small little paragraphs in rhyming verse. And I just put little tidbits of their background, of their accomplishments, but they're all special. They're all amazing. But I got to say that Ellen Ochoa, the fact that she's a female inventor, a classical flautist or flutist, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Maybe you can tell me. Is it flautist or flutist? Tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato. It depends on what part of the country you're in, I guess.
Okay. She studied, physics and science. It's so challenging for little girls in general to go into the STEM field because it's traditionally been so male, that to know that there was a Latina that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, she was already deep into the STEM field and achieved almost the impossible. To me, that's so impressive. And, I hope little girls that read the book get inspired and just get that little tidbit of braveness and boldness to also follow their dreams, however impossible they may seem at the time.
Well, I'm really happy that you reminded me of Ms. Ochoa, because I have my niece, who is a very strong, bold Latina, is 15, and when I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, she said, I want to be an engineer, a detective, and a doctor. And my response was, yeah, you can do all of those. Absolutely. And I'll try to help you as much as I can. And that's still her goal. And it's going to be hard, but knowing that there's someone who has been an inventor, an astronaut, and a flautist, that could give her some inspiration to make it happen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everything is hard, so might as well do something hard that you like, because everything, even, making coffee is hard. Flipping burgers is hard. So if you're going to do something that's difficult, might as well do something that you're passionate about, right?
Absolutely. Now, one thing that I know is hard from personal experience, now be bold, be brave, is you published it bilingually in English and in Spanish.
Correct.
You also, to add to the challenge, you published it in rhyme. And I know, having gone to and toured Puerto Rico with my educational magic shows, and at that time I was doing a rap, and I had to translate my English rap into Spanish, and I am not fluent in Spanish, but that was the hardest thing, not only translating it but also learning it so I could perform it down in Puerto Rico in Spanish. That must have been a real challenge, translating the rhymes. So it rhymes in both English and Spanish?
Correct. It was a challenge, but it was also a lot of fun, and I got a couple of Spanish friends that are, one of them is she used to work for Univision and Telemundo, and she's actually a ghostwriter for a lot of Spanish books. And I got her to help me. I also got a teacher from Mexico to help me. So I had a little help from my friends, as they say, to translate in Spanish and make sure that the rhymes made sense, and that, I wanted to give equal importance to both Spanish and English, because I also wanted to give that message to whoever reads this that, one language isn't better than the other, or one language doesn't take priority or over the other. Both of them are equally as beautiful. Both of them are equally as important. So I wanted to make sure both of them rhymed, and both of them rhymed well, and both of them were, gave each woman their fair share of importance. So yeah, it was challenging, but we got it done.
Well, that is really wonderful, and I'm really happy. And I agree, learning different languages was something that it wasn't necessarily encouraged. It wasn't discouraged in my family growing up, but it wasn't encouraged. And it was a challenge for me. So when I struggled with it through high school, and, I just did enough to kind of get through high school. As, once I became married and traveled to Puerto Rico for the first time and fell in love with the culture and with the people, I said, I want to come back here and I want to perform in Spanish. And when I made that happen, it was wonderful, but it also gave me a different perspective on the whole beauty of learning different languages and connecting with people by just making the effort to learn some of the language. And it's such a wonderful sign of respect. And I'm really happy that you have this book that not only is it accessible to kids who speak English and kids who speak Spanish, but hopefully a kid who speaks English only will look to get the Spanish version of the book so they can start learning some Spanish and vice versa, and really encourage kids to learn different languages.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know why I feel like there's been fear of other languages in this country, and I'm not sure why, but having multiple languages, it's kind of like knowing a different instrument. It just adds to the richness and culture of your life, of the of your brain, of, your stimulation. It's literally like learning a different instrument. So to me, I do see here on the West Coast a growth in different schools that are starting to bring in more languages and having Korean immersion, Chinese immersion, Japanese immersion, Spanish immersion. So I've actually been asked to speak at a lot of these Spanish immersion classes. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy that there's a growing trend in emphasizing the importance of learning a second language. And it doesn't have to be Spanish necessarily. Mm-hmm. It could be French or Japanese or Chinese. But I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's just another way to connect into a different culture and learn something new from, someone that you may not have learned from had you not been exposed to the language. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's just, I tell you, when I go into, when I'm starting my magic shows, as we're waiting for the kids to come in, and the kids are sitting, and I just hate sitting backstage and just waiting. I just have too much extra energy. So I'm out in the audience and I'm saying hi to the kids. And when you're saying hi to 400 kids, it gets boring to say hi. So I just go through the audience. Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum. But the kids hear this, and it's like, it's so cool because some of the kids, my friend, that's how my friend says hi. And I'm just so happy that we're having more, that we're encouraging kids to learn more languages. And just think about what a wonderful gift you can give your kid. If your kid becomes fluent in English, Spanish, and Mandarin, they could talk to almost everybody in the world.
Yes.
Yeah. One person that I just want to chat with you about before we go is Selena. I was such a fan of her music, and my wife and I, when we first got married, was when Selena was just releasing her first English album, and we loved her, and we have such great memories. It was so sad. Tell us a little bit about Selena.
Yeah, so Selena has kind of grown to become this powerful legend in the Latino bicultural, bilingual community, because she was bilingual, she was bicultural, and she was one of the first icons or Latino figures who kind of lived in both spaces at the same time, in the English space and the Spanish space. And we hadn't really seen that before, and she was able to go from one to the other with great ease. Mm-hmm. And she represents that accepting your biculturalism and embracing it, and that's what Selena represents. She makes us proud to be able to say, I'm Mexican and I'm American, or I'm Guatemalan and I'm American, or Puerto Ricans are Americans, but you know what I mean. She makes us proud to embrace being in both cultures at the same time. And it's so interesting how she passed away, so many years ago, I think over 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And there's little girls that are 5, 6, 7 years old that dress like her, sing her songs, and her presence is still so important. And that's why for me it was important to include her in the book, because she was not just a superstar. She was also a warrior, a figure that really fought hard and hustled for what she wanted. Mm-hmm. She was bold and she was brave. And I also want to send that message out to the kids of, stay humble, be bold, be brave, and you could accomplish anything.
Absolutely. I want people to know where they can connect with you and find out more about Be Bold, Be Brave. It's just a gift, the speech impediment, just a gift that keeps on giving. Tell us where we can connect with you online.
Perfect. Well, I created my own publishing company as a self-published author, and the website is Con Todo Press, and Con Todo means with everything. It's kind of like, putting yourself out there with everything. So it's Con Todo, CONTODO Press. And that's also the Instagram account, so you can find more information about the book, about the women featured in the book on the website. And you can also find the book on Amazon. It's available there as well. So Be Bold, Be Brave, 11 Latinas Who Made U.S. History.
Excellent. We have been speaking today to the author of Be Bold, Be Brave, 11 Latinas Who Made U.S. History, Naibe Reynoso. Naibe, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for challenging my speech today. But also thank you so much for introducing and creating this book, because I think it's going to make a big difference in a lot of kids' lives.
I hope so. Thank you so much. And let's all be bold, be brave, and, reach for our dreams.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Laura Wright. Laura Wright is the author of I Can Handle It. It's a wonderful, wonderful book that you're going to want to know all about. Hey, if you are an author, you want to know all about our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. We've assembled a panel of evaluators. They're teachers, they're kids, they're parents. And if they think that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. And that recognition comes with some great tools to help your book stand out amongst the crowd of wonderful children's books that are being published every single week. It really is hard if you're an author to get your book noticed. We think the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program is a wonderful tool for every single author. And the great thing is that the authors whose books have received that designation, they think it's a great tool also. Find out more by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Hey, we want to thank Naibe Reynoso for joining us today. We want to thank our sponsor, Rachel Mazer. Check out her The Nature Club series. Also want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I can't forget thanking my beautiful wife for all of her support. And I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show. Thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.